My name is Hannah Carter, 38 years old. For years, I had told myself that love meant patience, that compromise meant enduring slights, the subtle jabs, and the moments that chipped away at my dignity. But last weekend, at Ethan's cousin's wedding, I realized that maybe patience had a limit. Maybe love didn't require self-erasure. The reception hall was luminous, shimmering with crystal chandeliers and floral arrangements so precise they seemed almost artificial. Guests laughed, clinked glasses, and swirled champagne like it was liquid gold. Ethan had been charming everyone since noon, flashing that smile that made women and men alike trust him without hesitation. And yet, beneath that charm, there was the familiar, sharp-edged cruelty I had grown so accustomed to. "See that one?" Ethan whispered to me, nodding toward the best man. "That's the kind of guy you could have married. Tall, successful, doesn't wear sneakers with suits." I stared at him blankly, swallowing the bite of salmon I had been too nervous to taste. "You're saying I made the wrong choice?" I asked, voice quieter than I intended. He smirked, thinking he was teasing. "Lucky you didn't, though," he said, eyes glinting. Lucky. That word made a hollow echo in my chest. I had spent years convincing myself that enduring Ethan's constant comparisons, the subtle humiliation in front of family, the jokes that cut deeper than any argument, was normal. That it was love. That it was patience. Ethan's sister, Kelsey, 33, leaned over, whispering with a grin, "Girl, you could have had anyone. Remember Trevor from college?" Trevor, a name I hadn't heard in years. "Don't remind me," I said, loud enough for the table to notice. Kelsey giggled, nudging Ethan. "See, even she knows." And then Ethan turned his gaze on me, narrow and calculating. "You're lucky I even married you." The room seemed to blur for a moment. My therapist often said I had a savior complex, that I tried to fix what couldn't be fixed. Maybe she was right. But this felt different. This wasn't a teasing remark. It was a verdict. I put down my fork, meeting his eyes without flinching. "You're right," I said softly. "I am lucky." He blinked, probably expecting indignation, maybe a fight. He didn't get either. "No," I continued. "I'm lucky because I finally see everything clearly, and maybe I'm even luckier that I finally have the courage to leave." A faint twitch ran across his jaw. My words, calm as they were, landed heavier than any shout. What Ethan didn't know was that for months I had been documenting everything, every insult, every subtle public humiliation, every instance that made me question my worth. My therapist, Rita, a real licensed professional, not the so-called guidance Ethan insisted I needed, had suggested keeping a journal. It was supposed to help me process my feelings. It did more than that. It gave me clarity, a map out of the chaos. See, Ethan always thought he was the prize. With his high-paying tech job, his charm, and his carefully curated image, he believed he had rescued me simply by existing in my life. Meanwhile, I was paying for everything: shared bills, groceries, the house, the vacations that I had long ago stopped enjoying because the anxiety he stirred outweighed the excitement of travel. The following Monday, I met with Rita for the first time about taking legal steps. She flipped through my carefully kept records, her eyes scanning financial statements, texts, screenshots of humiliation, and journal entries. "You've done your homework," she said, smiling. "Now we just need to make sure your next move is precise. No unnecessary exposure, no drama you can avoid." It was advice I clung to. Ethan would make a scene if he ever realized I was taking action. So I planned, quietly, calculatingly, like setting pieces on a chessboard. 2 weeks later, while Ethan was at his favorite bar with Kelsey and their mother, Diane, I took the first step toward reclaiming my life. The process server arrived discreetly at 7:30 p.m., precisely when they were 2 bottles deep into their weekly ladies' night. I had prepared a manila envelope containing the official documents along with a small, elegantly designed card. On it, I wrote, "Thank you for showing me that I deserve better. Thank you for making this decision so clear. And thank you for reminding me that courage, once found, can never be taken away." The envelope and card were delivered with calm professionalism. The chaos that ensued was exactly as predicted. Ethan attempted to use his phone for an Uber. Declined. His backup card. Declined. Kelsey began a live rage texting session that provided real-time insight into his unraveling. Diane, predictably, called me a pathetic little man, though I barely noticed from my office. That night, my phone lit up with dozens of missed calls, none of which I answered, and for the first time in years, I slept without a knot of anxiety strangling my chest. I felt free. But freedom, as I would soon discover, is rarely silent. The morning after the delivery, the sunlight fell soft and almost mocking across my apartment. For the first time in years, I made coffee, not in a rush, not with an anxious glance at my phone, but with deliberate calm. Each sip was a reminder that the first move had been made, and that I was no longer waiting for Ethan to decide who I could be. Meeting Rita that Tuesday, I laid everything out. Journal entries, financial records, screenshots, texts, emails, evidence of a marriage where my voice had been systematically muted. Rita, with her poised efficiency, scanned every document, every page of carefully logged humiliations. "You've been meticulous," she said, her voice calm but sharp. "Most people underestimate the power of documentation. You've already won half the battle by preserving clarity." I nodded, feeling a flicker of pride I hadn't allowed myself in years. The strategy was simple, but it required patience. Reclaim autonomy without giving Ethan the satisfaction of a dramatic confrontation. First, financial independence. I revoked his access to our shared accounts, canceled joint subscriptions, and quietly ensured he could no longer manipulate shared services. Each step was small, almost invisible, but each one stripped him of a thread of control. When Diane called, shrieking questions and accusations, I answered in measured tones. "I'm sorry you feel that way," I said. No panic, no tears, just calm, deliberate words. Hanging up, I felt an unfamiliar sense of power. Kelsey, as always, hovered in the periphery like a smoke alarm for drama. One night, she burst into my apartment, eyes wide. "Hannah, you're really doing this? You're actually leaving him?" I offered her a faint smile. "I already started, 2 weeks ago, actually." Her jaw dropped. "But the bar. Mom, he'll explode." "Let him," I said, sipping my tea. "I'm done reacting to him. I'm moving forward." Meanwhile, Ethan's social charm continued in public, but cracks were beginning to show. Subtle hints of worry, micro-expressions betraying the control he had lost. His ex-girlfriend Clara, a name I had tucked in my mental files for months, appeared indirectly, through a mutual friend, a cryptic text, a chance LinkedIn mention. I didn't need to contact her yet, but her existence as a past connection to Ethan loomed like a silent witness, foreshadowing complications to come. Small victories mounted. Netflix, Spotify, gym memberships revoked. Access to his favorite apps stripped. I watched from a distance as his carefully curated world began wobbling. Social media rants started to surface. Diane's calls intensified. Kelsey's live texting sessions became a chaotic soundtrack to my quiet empowerment. But none of it touched me directly. I had insulated myself from the storm, like a lighthouse at the edge of a tidal wave. Even at work, I noticed subtle changes in Ethan's demeanor. Friends and colleagues began whispering about how different he seemed. He attempted to intimidate, to guilt, but each tactic was met with my neutral calm. I had learned over years of emotional manipulation that the only way to dismantle it was with unwavering consistency and documentation to back every boundary I enforced. The weeks passed with the slow, almost cinematic tension. Every interaction, every dinner, every casual conversation became a chess move. I was patient, I was deliberate, and in the quiet moments, alone in my apartment, I allowed myself to imagine what life would feel like when the last thread of this toxic relationship finally snapped. Rita called one afternoon. "You're ready for the next step," she said. "The documents, the official separation, it's time to move into the public phase. But remember, Hannah, you hold all the cards." I smiled, a small private smile, knowing she was right. The anticipation was intoxicating. Ethan's ego was a fortress, but I held the key, and for the first time I wasn't afraid to use it. Foreshadowing whispered in every detail. Clara, Ethan's ex-girlfriend, was still out there, quietly connected. Kelsey's eyes flickered with worry and curiosity. Diane's outrage simmered just beneath the surface. But none of that mattered, not yet. The storm would come, and when it did, I would be ready. It started at the bar, the same one Ethan had claimed as his domain for years. Kelsey and Diane were perched at the usual corner table, laughter and glasses clinking in what was supposed to be girls' night. Only this time, the air felt different. Tense. Electric. I didn't walk in. I never needed to. The storm I had set in motion was about to hit, and I watched from a distance as the pieces moved themselves. Ethan tried to charm his way through the evening, holding court with friends, leaning into his familiar role of confident, unflappable leader. But there was something in the tight set of his jaw, the slight twitch of his fingers, that betrayed panic beneath the practiced mask. Then the envelope arrived. Delivered discreetly by the process server, it landed on the table in front of him. He blinked, confused. His hands, so used to taking control, hovered over it. A card rested on top, elegant and precise, with my handwriting. Thank you for showing me I deserve better. Thank you for making this decision so clear. And thank you for reminding me that courage, once found, can never be taken away. I knew exactly what would happen next, and I wasn't wrong. The meltdown was immediate. He tried to use his phone for an Uber, declined. His backup card, declined. Diane's voice rose in shrill, venomous accusation. Pathetic, she screamed, causing the bar manager to frown in alarm. Kelsey, panicked and simultaneously furious, began live texting every detail of the chaos. And still, I didn't move. I stayed in my apartment, quietly sipping tea, feeling the faint thrill of victory I had never allowed myself before. Over the next few days, the public unraveling continued. Ethan tried to regain control, but each move only exposed more of his fragility. Canceling his access to shared subscriptions, social media accounts, even gym memberships, each withdrawal was like pulling threads from a tapestry that had always seemed perfect. The family tried to intervene. Diane called incessantly, her rage bubbling through every word. Kelsey oscillated between worry and accusation, but none of it reached me. I had insulated myself carefully, and every reaction only confirmed the power of calm precision. And then there was Clara. Ethan's ex-girlfriend appeared indirectly, through a forwarded message from a mutual friend, asking if I had any idea what Ethan had been telling her about me. My pulse quickened, not with fear, but with anticipation. She could complicate things, but only if I allowed it. For now, her presence was a quiet shadow, a reminder of the chessboard I had set up months ago. The apex came when the bar manager, frustrated with the chaos, asked Diane and Kelsey to leave. Ethan's face twisted with disbelief and fury, his carefully curated persona cracking under the weight of exposure. Diane's calls became accusatory tirades. Kelsey's live texts chronicled the scene for all to see. But amidst the chaos, I felt a strange serenity. I had orchestrated this carefully, every move calculated to preserve my dignity while exposing the absurdity of Ethan's entitlement. The room that had once confined me, filled with judgment, manipulation, and humiliation, was now a stage, and I was watching the final act unfold from behind the curtain. And as I sat alone in my apartment, I let myself smile, because for the first time in years, I knew I was no longer reacting to him. I was leading the story, and the revelation was only just beginning. The storm was far from over. Diane would rage. Kelsey would panic. Ethan would lash out in ways that would astonish everyone. But I had the evidence. I had the plan. And soon, very soon, the world would see exactly what I had endured and why I was finally free. The courtroom smelled faintly of polished wood and tension, an almost tangible reminder that nothing here would be easy. But this time, I felt ready. Every journal entry, every text, every carefully documented financial record was organized neatly in front of me, each page a piece of armor. Ethan arrived with Diane and Kelsey, each of them acting as if their presence alone could intimidate me. But I didn't flinch. I had rehearsed this moment in my mind 1,000 times, and the calm that I had cultivated over the past weeks carried me like a shield. Rita, my lawyer, was poised beside me, a silent anchor. She had studied every move Ethan and his family might attempt, predicting tantrums, accusations, and manipulation. She was a predator in the legal world, and I was her patient, cunning collaborator. The proceedings began, and almost immediately, Ethan tried the usual tactic, charm and intimidation. He leaned into the judge's gaze, smiling as if the years of belittlement and emotional manipulation were somehow invisible. Diane attempted to add commentary, while Kelsey whispered frantically at his side. Rita intervened calmly. "Your Honor," she said, "we have extensive documentation of the abuse, both financial and emotional. My client has acted responsibly and discreetly, but the evidence is comprehensive." The judge raised an eyebrow, scanning the pages. There was silence, the kind that presses in on all sides. Then came the reveal. The card I had written, delivered months ago, carefully archived with timestamps. "Mrs. Carter, did you prepare this?" the judge asked. "Yes, Your Honor," I replied, my voice steady. "And the accounts referenced here, were they in your name?" "Yes, Your Honor." Ethan's face went pale. Diane's jaw tightened. Kelsey's whispering ceased. The legal process unfolded with precision. Requests for temporary support were denied. Claims to the house, the car, and shared investments were evaluated against the meticulous records I had prepared. Each denial was like a small victory. Each acknowledgement of my documentation a confirmation that my preparation had worked. Then came the final twist. Clara, Ethan's ex-girlfriend, whom I had contacted only after ensuring her neutrality, provided testimony confirming that Ethan had exaggerated, manipulated, and, in some cases, outright lied about our marriage in conversations with friends and acquaintances. Her calm, truthful account dismantled the narrative Ethan had tried to construct in his favor. The ruling was swift. Divorce granted, assets fairly divided, no alimony, and a clear acknowledgement that Ethan had contributed nothing to shared bills or mortgage payments. Diane and Kelsey's attempts to argue entitlement fell flat. Ethan's composure cracked, his face a mixture of disbelief and fury. As we left the courtroom, Diane tried one last ambush, stepping toward me with rage in her eyes. Rita positioned herself between us. "Assault charges would only complicate this further," she said. Diane backed off, sputtering threats that hung impotently in the air. Outside, I allowed myself a deep breath. The storm had passed. Not completely, perhaps. The family would continue to murmur. Ethan would likely rage in private, but I had reclaimed what mattered: autonomy, dignity, safety, and the ability to move forward. Walking back to my car, I felt a strange lightness. Every meticulously documented moment of humiliation, every instance I had doubted myself, had been transformed into proof of resilience. I had acted with patience, strategy, and intelligence, and it had paid off. The day the divorce was finalized, sunlight spilled into my apartment in a way that felt almost ceremonial. It was as if the universe had marked this moment, a quiet acknowledgement that I had survived, and more than that I had reclaimed my life. I framed the thank you card I had once sent to Ethan, placing it on my desk next to a photo from the Costa Rica trip I had taken, not with him, but with my best friend, Derek, who had reminded me that adventure doesn't require permission from anyone else. The card was more than a memento. It was a testament to the courage I had found in the midst of chaos. In the weeks that followed, life unfolded in surprising, quietly joyful ways. I met Jake, a man I hadn't expected but had always hoped for, thoughtful, steady, and utterly respectful. We met at the CrossFit gym, laughing over shared struggles with burpees and protein shakes. He didn't try to fix me or control me. He simply showed up, and I realized how refreshing it was to be seen without judgment or expectation. Ethan continued his predictable spiral: social media rants, angry phone calls, and passive-aggressive messages, but none of it reached me. Kelsey and Diane gradually faded from the center of my world, their voices replaced by calm, laughter-filled evenings with friends, new adventures, and quiet reflection. I allowed myself to reflect on what had truly mattered: the years I had given to someone who could not value me, the meticulous planning that had turned humiliation into empowerment, and the lessons that had hardened me without breaking me. Every journal entry, every carefully documented insult and financial slight had led me here, to clarity, freedom, and self-respect. Romance, once a complicated tangle of manipulation and resentment, became simple and joyful. Jake didn't ask me to prove my worth. He didn't need me to shrink or apologize for existing, and I found, with quiet amazement, that I could love freely and fully, without fear, without compromise, and without losing myself. The story of Ethan and his family's unraveling became almost absurd in hindsight. I sometimes laughed at Diane's attempts to intimidate, at Kelsey's panicked texts, and at Ethan's disbelief that he had lost control. But more than laughter, I felt gratitude for the courage to leave, for the strength to plan, and for the wisdom to recognize that true luck had never been in being chosen by him. Luck, I realized, was in recognizing I deserved better and then claiming it. As the city hummed outside my apartment window, I leaned back, sipping a cup of coffee and thinking about how far I had come. There were scars, yes, but also a sense of pride and liberation that no one could take away. For anyone listening, watching, or reading, document everything. Trust your instincts. Seek help when necessary, and never allow anyone to convince you that enduring humiliation or manipulation is love or luck. You are not unlucky. You are deserving. You are worthy. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is to quietly, deliberately reclaim your life, one careful step at a time.